based on the revision syllabus, revision material.
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the revision material or it is not there? Yes, no. Do you by any chance ask some yes or no? If you nod your head, I can.
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay, fine. No problem. So what I will do is, give me just a minute. I think I have a feature to upload it here. It is the same thing which I think ideally should have shared with you long back, but no problem. By the way, Board of Studies has just invited me yesterday to author the new upcoming ICI syllabus and material. So I will be authoring your new syllabus, whatever is there. But I think it's for CA final, one of the papers on technology, one of the chapters on technology.
Congratulations, sir.
Congrats, sir.
Congrats, sir.
Thank you. Hopefully, I'll make your life a little more easier. Let us see.
Please, sir.
Just give me a minute while I open that. I see a new syllabus revision. I see. Okay, I don't know why I'm not able to share. Chinmay, can I share it to you with you? You'll be able to put it in the WhatsApp group.
Yes, sir.
Okay, give me a minute. I have just sent that to you.
Right.
And some practice MCQ questions I'm sending, right? This is just for reference purpose. Let me know once you've got that, Chinmay.
Yes, sir. MCQ received 2 files.
Okay. Fair enough. So what we will do, we will slightly follow a different approach instead of, going to every topic, right? Let us understand what is the expectation from an examination from this entire paper. What they expect from you is 2 very simple things. A, you will have to speak on the technical concepts. There is no compromise on that, right? You will have to compulsory cover the technical elements of it. Second, the way you answer that question is the most important thing. You may have the complete knowledge conceptually, but if you are not able to articulate it well, that is where most of the students are actually failing, right? Now, what I will do is I'll directly head into the Board of Studies website, right? And we'll quickly go through the latest, institute suggested answers, right? And I hope you know how to navigate it. In case you do not know, I'm showing it live. ICI Board of Studies portal, right? Let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yes,
Yes.
Please go to the section called as suggested answers and you choose intermediate. The latest examination is what you'll have to choose. So I have EIS, right? November 2022 is the latest examination, right? May 23 is what you are writing. So you will find suggested answers for the latest. Now, if you pick up this and parallelly, what I'll also do is I'll pick up the question paper, right? Because question paper is what you will see. Answer script looks a little different. I would have done this in the previous session, but I thought it is worthwhile to revisit that because thanks to our wonderful memory which we have. Okay, just give a minute. I think it's loading. Okay. Are you able to see this JLS2H
Yes,
something written there?
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yes,
So
sir.
every examination will have this sort of a code. This code will be written on your exam room in that particular place, right? And please be aware, all the MCQ papers, what happens is you will have a part 1 and a part 2, right? A part 1 will be the MCQ question paper. You have to answer it in that Rangoli sheet, which you call it, OMR sheet. Return the question paper and the Rangoli sheet, right? And be very careful when you're answering that, because you know, plus minus one question up and down also while answering, it becomes a very difficult thing, right? And in case you feel that one question you don't want to answer, you want to revisit, be very conscious, because you read the third question, second question you reserved it, third question you read it, you put the marks against, or you know, the coloring against the second question, the whole thing goes for it, right? I'll tell you one of the common presumptions which you'll have. Every time option C only is coming, why is it? Right? I am not sure why last 3 questions option C is only the answer, right? So all these are the unwanted thoughts which will come. Just go with the flow by understanding the question, right? Now, if you look into part 2, right? Part 2 will have 2 sections in this paper, not in every paper, in this paper. Why? This paper, part 2, section A is EIS. Part B is strategic management, which Rajdeep sir will be taking tomorrow. So question paper consists of 5 questions. First question mandatory. You need not answer that first, but you need to ensure you've answered that. I hope you're getting my statement. I repeat, you need not answer that first, but please ensure you have answered that. And any 3 out of the 4 questions. And in this, that last question will have an internal choice. Clear with this? Yeah. So this is for now. This is a classical example of you studying not for knowledge, but for exams. What is the examination approach? You have to purely go based on that. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Now, if you look into part 2, section A, which is a 5-mark question, right? Section A is a 5-mark question, because bear in mind, 35 marks is basically section A. 15 marks is MCQ, right? So out of the 35 marks, first question 5 marks. Next, you have 4 questions, 10 marks each. Only 3 questions you need to answer. You're clear with this? Convinced? Any questions on this? Right? Okay. Look into this. If you read it for a first second, imagine you're reading this for the first time, you will be taken aback. In a conventional sense, data is raw entity, whereas information is processed entity. IS model converts data into information. What are the steps involved in accomplishing that in an IS model? It's a very simple question. How do you convert data into information? Are you with me? Right? So that's a plain vanilla question. Now, what is it that you answer over here? It is a very simple, it's called as the IPSO model. Input, process, output, storage. And then you have a feedback. Remember that one image there is in the first chapter. This is what it is. Right? Next, IS audit is a process of attesting objectives focused on safeguarding, integrity, management objective, efficiency. What are the objectives of IS audit? There are 4 objectives of IS audit. That is what you're expected to write. Safeguarding of assets, data integrity, effectiveness, efficiency. Unfortunately or fortunately, the answer is there here only. Right? This is like a bonus question. They are only given asset safeguarding, data integrity, management objectives include effectiveness. List the objective. Right? Maybe I would have probably written 1 or 2 lines giving an explanation of this. Just because it is 2 marks, don't restrict. Okay, I'll only write the heading, not write any explanation. Even though suggest answer, they've given only the point, I would still suggest you explain. Clear with this? Right? Now let's go to the second question. Second question onwards is a 10-mark question. Right? Now they've given some story. In the modern era, business will get developed automation technique, all the story last. What is automating business process? That's all. What is the meaning of BPA, business process automation? What is the advantage? Next, many organizations are moving to cloud, all the story. Explain 4 reasons for cloud-based applications compared to installed applications. Again, a very plain vanilla question, right? What are the benefits of automating? Quality, time saving, visibility, efficiency, ... Advantage of cloud-based versus installed application. They have given the differences. Look at the format in which they have presented the data. Are you clear? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
So wherever differentiate, distinguishes there, please ensure you put in this 3-columnar approach. Features, cloud-based, installed. Right? Okay. Moving further. We have been using emails, Google Drive for our personal use. However, it takes a major impact in business. Nowadays, why companies are migrating their business operations to the cloud? Give reasons by highlighting advantage. Basically, they're saying what are the advantages of moving to the cloud, right? They're just given economies of scale, reduced speed, globalized workforce. All these are very, very simple against story, right? But look at this. You will say work from anywhere. That you should not use word. You should use the word globalized workforce. You're getting that language, right? You can say reduce spending on technology. Instead of writing saving cost, reducing spend on technology. So that is the way they expect you to write, right? Backup and recovery, pervasive accessibility. So these are all the words which is sort of expected from you to mention. Next, fixed asset process is used to ensure immovable assets, etc., etc. What are the steps of fixed asset process flow? First chapter, business process flow, right? Procurement, registering, adjustment, transfer, etc. There is a chart given in the material. Please draw the chart. Here they're not given in the suggest answer. No problem. Please go ahead and chart. Next, ABC into core banking system. As an IT consultant, suggest the deployment implementation of CBS at various stages. So what are the stages of CBS basically? Planning, approval, selection, design, all that story comes. Then they're asking what is EFT and explain its types. What is electronic fund transfer, right? So basically you are expected to mention RTGS, NEFT, IMPs. Clear so far? Any questions?
Yes. No, sir.
Okay, next. How are we'll go to question paper on that. Computer used extensively, uncontrolled use have widespread. Explain factors influencing the need for control of audit of information system. Why should you have IT audit? Then they're asking about ERP. What are the activities or how will you influence the management to migrate their activities by explaining the benefits? So if you see all these questions, they're given some general GAN there. Towards the end, they're asking you what is the actual information, right? So you are talking about what is the why you should go for an IT audit, right? And then what are the benefits of ERP, right? Fairly simple, no rocket science there. Next, look at this question. Fifth question, I said fifth has an internal choice 6 plus 4 or there is this one internal question, right? Both of them are 4 marks each. So computers used extensively. Explain the factors influencing need for control audit. We spoke ERP or how do you protect e-commerce business from intrusion? So what are the various methods? Virus, hackers, passwords, sensitive data, etc. Clear? Now, if you look into this, frankly speaking, right, 35 marks, I am sure at least about 25 to 30 marks you will be able to score based on your knowledge, right? The challenge is presentation. The challenge is presentation, articulation. Putting it in the right manner is the most important. If you miss it out, that is where you will think, oh, I answered very well, but why am I getting a little lower score, especially in this paper? So it's all about articulation of this. Are you convinced with this? Right? And the other thing which I think you should be aware or you should have an idea by now is the case law repository. Not the case law, what is it? MCQ and case study repository, right? So if you go to MCQ and scenario booklet, you have intermediate. Please go to EIS, right? And here you have MCQ case scenario for section. So humble suggestion, please go through this. There will be at least about 100 odd questions, 10 to 20 questions roughly from each chapter. Please spend some time. Correct? And all of this, my dear friends, read it like a storybook. Don't spend specific 1 hour. I'll study only this. Classical example is you're preparing for the whatever that day is this thing is, and you realize that there is a 10 minutes break which you want to take, or let's say you wanted to watch a TV program, or you wanted to have lunch is under preparation, dinner is under preparation, or you want to take a 10-15 minutes break. Read this as a filler. Why I'm telling all this is because most of us, what we do, we focus on studying the core subject, but we forget that these are small fillers which can actually help you fetch those extra marks, which can be a difference between 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60. Right? Forget about 30 to 40, 39 and 40, 49 and 50, right? 59 and 60. That 1 mark makes a lot of difference, and this could be used as a filler. So what are the fillers you can spend some time on? Case study, MCQ questions. You can spend some time on suggested answers, revision test papers, mock test papers. All of this, my suggestion is take it as a pillar. Sir, I'm not finished the subject. Can I do it? Please go ahead and do it, sir. Nothing wrong. Because any which case, you are going to read the question and the answer. It's not that you will read the question and think what is the answer and answer it, right? You are going to definitely read through the answer. So what is more sensible for you? Make yourself aware of it. Are we clear with this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Now that you know what is expected out of you, now what makes sense is how do I prepare for that, right? So now we are talking about EIS, right? There's a quick revision material at a glance sort of a thing which I've mentioned. So what I normally tell you is please read the chapter number 3. Chapter number 3 is the first thing which you have to read, right? So I'm quickly going down here. And by the way, before I forget, there is one small, I'll rather go through the study material itself. That will be easier. You want me to go through CAPS notes or the ICA study material? Which will be easier for you?
Anyway,
I will
it's
do.
okay, sir.
Anything is
Yes, sir.
fine? Fair enough.
Yes, sir.
I'll touch upon the key items wherever is there so that you also can mark into your material. Okay. So if you look into this material which is applicable from May 22 onwards, which is last exam, right? You will find a little later something called as mandatory. Some changes which has taken place. This one, right? They have given the overall syllabus and then there'll be one table which is significant updations over 2020 edition. Please read this with an extra amount of concentration. I repeat, please read this with extra amount of concentration. Not that questions will be asked only from this. It has a slightly higher probability. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yes, so it has a slightly higher amount of probability. Therefore, I would suggest please spend little extra time here. All right. Now coming back, as always, I keep on suggesting please read chapter 3 components first. And the good thing or the bad thing is you keep on reading, this chapter will never get over. It's huge. It's huge. No problem. If you still feel that you have completed chapter number 3, you will get the confidence that even though marks wise it is just 1/5, in terms of content, it is definitely 30 to 40%. Right, in terms of content. So you should get, and that is the fundamentals are covered there so that other chapters becomes easier. Right? What are the important areas? I'll touch upon it towards the end. Okay, so quickly let's go into this particular table. Okay, all these first few pages are story. This is a chapter overview chart. My suggestion is start from this, right? Because if you see this at a very, very high level, you will know what is it that you know, what is it that you don't know. This is a good pointer for you, right? People, computer system, hardware, software. So software I find always tricky, sir. I need to spend extra time. Hardware, okay, sir, manageable. Clear? Then you have controls, objective, preventive, directive, corrective, nature of IS resource. Sir, everything is fine. This logical access, I find it a little difficult. Expend extra time. So as and when you read the chapter, mark which is the area which you have to spend extra time, because before the examination, you can spend little extra gyan or extra time over there, right? I'm going to quickly move into this. This was the question they asked. IPSO, information, data. Information is processed, data, raw, right? So input, process, output, storage. This is basically the cycle. And then we have what is called feedback. This chart was missing in the examination. Please draw this in the last November examination question, which I spoke of, right? Now, what is the components? It's very simple. You have the people element, UI, right? You take a Dunzo Swiggy app, you have a series of people. You have the computer system, hardware and software. You have the data and then the technology or the network, right? So people is all about the human element from CEO, you end user, technology user, etc. Then you have hardware. Under that, you have what is called input devices, keying in the data, processing devices, which does the calculation. Under that, you have CU, control unit, which can control, right, the instructions. There's like a traffic police, arithmetic and logic unit. Logic unit is like, you know, There is always a red in the traffic signal, but when there is an ambulance, that red immediately changes to green. That is the logic, right? It does all the computation. Process registers are where it is storing, right? But these are smaller temporary storage. Then you have data storage devices. You have primary and secondary. Very important examination questions have been asked. Differentiate between ROM and RAM. Both of them are primary memory. Primary memory, it is also referred to as a main memory, internal memory. It is volatile in nature, fluctuating in nature, right? RAM and ROM. What is volatile? Power off, everything goes. You have RAM and ROM. RAM, again, you have a nice difference table. You have something you can mark it, but nevertheless, I have explained. RAM is basically volatile in nature, power off, everything goes. ROM is non-volatile, reasonably permanent, right? RAM can be read or write, whereas ROM is only read only. So those are the major differences, right? Speed of a ROM is lesser, but RAM is quite high. Then you have what is called cache memory. Cache memory is a temporary memory which will, acts as a buffer between the RAM and the register. You have the RAM, you have the register. In between them, this fellow comes and sits, right? So that's basically a cache memory. Then you have secondary memory, which is all hard disk, pen drive, all of those things. Wherever you have tables like this, please go through it. Please go through it, right? Next. So I think I've already given this thing. Output device. What are the different types of output devices? There's an examination question: textile, graphical, tactile, etc. One general pro tip: wherever you find bullet points, compulsory read that. Why? Examination question. Okay. Software, operating system, application software, operating system, functions of the operating system: who, high, empty, and left. Remember that? I've given that memory code: who, high, empty, and left, right? Which is hardware functions, user interface, right? So that's basically this thing. One very popular examination question, right? Let's quickly move on. Application software. This is nothing but the app. We are referring to whatever app which we are using, right? It could be a WhatsApp, it could be Zoom. All of these are called as applications. Then you have data resources. This is all to do with database, right? Database management. So database is basically a logical collection of data. Normally it is stored in a database management system, right? Imagine you had marks of all your students, which you put it into a table, right? The table becomes a database management system, right? The whole of this, you can call it as a database. Advantage, disadvantage, I'm not spending too much time into that. Then comes networking related components. You have two types: connection oriented, connectionless. Connection oriented, simple example: both of us have to be switched on, only then we can speak. Example: telephone, landline, right? Or I mean, as a matter of fact, even mobile phone, right? Both of us will have to speak at the same time. You should be connected. Connectionless is where you could send a message, after some time it could get delivered to you. Example: you use an SMS, you need not be active. You switch off and after a few minutes you switch on, you will still get it. Then there are three things which is very, very important from examination perspective. Network models to be addressed, right? Routing, bandwidth, contention, resilience. Routing is the path to be taken. You are moving from your office to home or home to college. Do you take the same route every time? The answer is no. It keeps on changing. That's routing. Next, bandwidth. How much of data can you take? Some roads auto can go. Some roads only bike or cycle can go. Some roads lorries can go. You getting the difference? That is basically bandwidth. Contention. Two people want to go at the same time. How the conflict is sorted out. Classical example of conflict sort out. You also want to go. Another fellow also want to go. Who ultimately goes? Auto driver will go. Right? So that's a basic classical example of a contention. Last is resilient. Can I recover from a failure? Very important 4 features. Please mark it. MCQ questions many of the times comes from this. I'll pause for a minute. If you have any questions, please ask. Okay. Sorry, is this approach okay, or you want me to go through caps material? I'm okay either ways.
Okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's fine, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Next,
Yes, sir.
what are the benefits of a computer network? Again, examination question. It is distributed in nature, resource sharing, computational power. What is computational power? Classical example, remember ATM. ATM machines are not very smart. You give them an input, it will give you back an output. Processing is not done there, it is done somewhere else, right? You can reasonably rely on communication. Now, what are the telecommunications value which it provides? Again, examination question. Time compression. Over time, we are able to, reduce the time lag. Geographical dispersion. Thanks to Zoom that we are able to do this class easily. Otherwise, we all have to meet in one physical place and we have to speak. Restructuring business relations, right? So this covers the first part of it. Now comes entire section on controls. Entire system on controls, right? Examination question. As an IS auditor, what are the controls that are lacking in a computerized environment? This is the list. Do you notice this? Right? As a lack of computerized environment, these are the common issues, right? People don't understand the IS risk and controls. That's why banks today keep on informing you, boss, do not share your password. Why? If you share your password or OTP, risk, right? Because you don't understand that risk. Next, inadequate framework. You don't know the set of rules. Weak controls, low level of awareness, complexity of application. So all these are examples of issues which are sort of lacking in a computerized environment, right? This controls are divided into objective, nature of IS resource, IS function. Objective is PDC, preventive, detective, corrective. Nature of IS resource is environmental, physical, and logical. IS function is something different. Preventive, some control which prevents you from doing it. A classical example in a conventional method, wearing of a mask. It prevented during that pandemic time. Agree? Antivirus software prevents you from in case some sort of a issue, right? Giving access only to authorized person. For example, currently the host is only, let us say, Chinmay. She is given me the co-host. So others cannot do anything. So it's a preventive control, right? Please give examples wherever possible. Detective, it is more like an audit, right? For example, I ask all of you to switch on the CCTV camera. All of you I asked you to switch on the laptop or mobile camera. Then I am able to see you and figure out, right, is your concentration level reasonably here or not, right? But it's only a detective control, right? Of course, on a lighter note, I was seeing one Instagram video where one lady is talking in a meeting, right? One fellow is happily smiling, yes, 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 etc. Right? Suddenly, some object came or some ball came, and that laptop behind he had put some sticker. He had turned the laptop, right? He had put his facing, nodding the head. That fellow is not there in the meeting at all, right? He has put some sort of a wallpaper and some ball or something hit, and that fellow, cheddi account sutarta idan, right? So these are all examples of detective control which can probably, identify what is permitted, non-permitted. Bear in mind, a detective control, somebody has to identify and you have to correct it. If you don't correct it, it is dangerous. Clear? Questions? Done? Next, corrective controls. Corrective controls are those set of controls which have, by nature, have a feature of correcting. The main characteristics is that they can correct it, minimize the impact, identify the cause of the problem, how do I fix it, all of those things. So that's more of a corrective control, right? So that's how it is. Next, classification based on IS resource, environmental controls. Environmental controls are all to do with your power, UPS, all of those things. I think it's self-explanatory, not spending too much time onto this, right? Electrical exposure is where you use surge protectors. Remember that shock laga ad, Havells, shock laga, shock laga, right? Then UPS, voltage regulators, all of these are examples. Next is water damage. Water detectors, placing the computer room not at the basement, maybe at the second floor, etc. Then pollution, you basically have air conditioning. Physical access, what are the various types of controls? Door locks, bolting doors, right? Pin, plastic cards, all of these. Then you have logging in facility where you have a book where you write who is coming in, who is going out. And I asked you your address proof so that tomorrow if something goes wrong, I know who is the person who done. Electronic login, basically a combination of access card, etc. Then what are other methods? Video camera, security guard. I think most of you would have experienced this, so I'm not spending too much time. Remember Namma Metro, how they do the check. That is all to do with your physical access, right? Then comes very important logical access. The first thing is user access management, right? In logical access, the first thing is what? User access management. Who is the user, right? What is that user doing? First, am I registering him? For example, you joined CAPS, right? Now you are given a Zoom ID. How do they verify whether you are only joining? Registration. So they ask, okay, fill up this form. Yes or no? User registration. Then privilege management. Only some people will have the presentation rights. Sometimes even chat option is disabled, right? So those are all privilege management. Then password. You have to mandatorily enter a password. Otherwise, you cannot join the session. Then periodically I keep on reviewing. Oh, is this 30 people have joined? Are these 30 people my students or not? Right? So review of access. From your end, what is your responsibility? You have to ensure you have a password. Do not share the password. You have to devise. You should not leave it unattended, etc. Right? Third is the network related. Network related, what is there? It is refers to managing the access of the network over the, by way of a login, by way of internet, etc. Who can use the network? What is the path? Right? Is there a segregation of this network? All of those comes within this ambit, right? Firewall. Firewall, I kept on telling you, is like a watchman who sees who is permitted, who is not permitted. Only the fellow who is permitted will be given the entry. Who is not permitted will not be given the entry, right? Next, operating system controls. These are all to do with OS related controls. What is OS? Windows, Macintosh, right? Android, all of those. Identification of terminal. So Windows has a feature coupled with other applications where you can identify that this is the system from which intimation or calls is actually bringing in. Terminal login procedure, the procedure established for logging in, right? Access token, the token card, it will be something like a small token which will help you out for doing things. Access control list. Access control list is all to do with the list of users who are permitted to have access, who are not permitted to have access. Clear so far?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Pradeep.
Sir, if the question was based on case study, so do we need to write all those data given and all those things like we write in law and
No, don't do that. Don't do that. I understood your point. You write like facts of the case and other things, right?
Yes,
Don't
sir.
write any of those things. Just write as an auditor, the following are the important things. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Only in your law and what is that accounting standards, etc. We'll have to do it. Any other question? Okay. So if you are clear, let us move ahead. Access control are two methods. Discretionary access, basically, you are giving a set of users only to whom you will probably give some set of access. User identification, authentication, I told you, identify that person, authenticate that person. So I identified that this person is Chinmay or Rutvik, but how do I authenticate it? You authenticate with the help of a password. You authenticate with the help of a OTP, right? You heard of Aadhaar authentication, right? All of these are examples, right? Next, terminal timeout. After a particular time, log out that person, right? Or connection gets, deactivated. Then you have application monitoring, again similar to this, sensitive isolation, event logging, all of those things, right? Next, classification based on information system functions. Now here it is more to do with functions, top management controls, this budget planning, organizing, etc. System development management controls, very important. SDLC is what is they call it. System development management controls. So here what you do what is called as first feasibility assessment. If you are developing a software, is it worthwhile for you to develop it or not? For example, you want to replace the manual attendance system with the automated attendance system. So you need to understand whether is it feasible for you or not. How you will check the feasibility based on various methods, speaking with stakeholders, interview, what is the objective, how do I safeguard the data, etc. Then analyze the existing system, what you have, whatever system you have, analyze good, bad, ugly. Then once it is done, you prepare a design, right? Let's take a simple example. How should your attendance system work? Okay, I will give an ID card to everybody. Morning when they come, they will log in. Evening when they go, they will log out. Therefore, attendance recorded, right? So that is called as a system design, data design, database, physical design, layout, all these designs you will. Then you will have to acquire the hardware and software. What is the hardware you have to acquire? That scanning software. Your ID card, you have to scan that hardware device you require. What is the software? The software should understand this ID card pertains to Rutvik or this ID card pertains to Chinmay. Now, what could be the issue? Let us say, for example, I am on leave, right? Bhumika is on leave. I take the Bhumika's ID card and I give it to Kanishka and say, hey, you sort of log in, right? Attendance can still get captured, right? Now, what is the limitation in that? So that is a limitation with the card-based approach, right? So what is an alternative thing you have to do? You go for biometric. You go for biometric, fingerprint. So can Bhumika say, hey, today I'm not coming, here is my finger, go authenticate? It is not possible, right? So each of those solutions has its own pros and cons. Once this is done, you need to test it and you need to periodically maintain. So this is your system development controls. Next, program management controls. You are defining a program, right? How that program should be written. What is the design? What is the coding? What is the testing of the program? How do you operate, keep on a periodical basis? This one previous point is on the entire system. So system development management. Whereas this point, what you just said, is only on the program, right? System is something which is bigger. Out of it, you can understand system like a book, program like one chapter or one subsection. So how does that program? Because if I have to write a book, it doesn't mean that I start writing the book right from the entire thing, whatever I feel like. No, the book I will logically divide. First step, book has 5 chapters. Within the 5 chapters, these are the 10 topics. Within these 10 topics, these are the details. So like that, it keeps on going. Right? You have something called planning, design, coding, testing. Testing has got various types: unit testing, integration testing. Unit testing is sending one small portion. Integration testing A and B, right? Whole program testing is completely as a whole you test. Then you have data resource management controls. Here what we do, here we focus is on backup and related existence. Is the data available? Tomorrow if there is a loss, can I recover or recoup the data? What are the access control mechanisms I have? How do I update the data, right? I am updating the data. How is it reflected in the original data? Will it overwrite or will the existing be as it is? Those are the questions. Next, concurrency control, very important. 2 people are accessing the same data. I type, you delete. Then who retains? Where is the version? Right? All those questions. Then quality related. Next is security related. This is all to do with developing a disaster recovery plan, emergency plan, backup plan, test plan, all of those things. So emergency plan is tomorrow if there is something untoward, what is it that you have to do immediately? Backup plan, what type of a data backup I take it so that tomorrow something goes wrong, I can restore it. Then you have what is called a test plan. How do I test it? And then you have a business continuity plan, which is a overall fit. Then you have operations management control. Here we talk about computer operations, the day-to-day activities, network operations, network. Say for example, some person is logging in, he forgot to log out. His session will be lying idle. You need to clear that, right? So all of those are network operations. Data preparation entry, how the data is entered. Production controls, right? This is all to do with your dispatch of input, output, your production related. File library, how the files have been maintained, right? Documentation and program library, etc. Then you also have elements of capacity planning, help desk. All of these are operations. Then you have QA. The whole purpose of QA is how the quality goals are established and how they are sort of relooked. So this table gives you the overall summary. Then you have application control framework. Now in application control framework, there's a concept of audit trail controls. Audit trail is an area which I'm expecting some examination question, because from 1st April 2023, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has mandated audit trails. in all accounting software. So therefore, indirectly, this importance has increased, right? A trail in a layman's language is a chronological set of events, right? This time you came in, this time you did this time you exited, right? That's a trail. That's what you get to know if you see a CCTV camera, correct? If you see a CCTV camera, you get to know what is the time and what are the events which has taken place, right? Now here you have boundary controls. Boundary controls are cryptographic controls. What is cryptography? Encryption, converting one form of text to another form of text. For example, I have 4-letter word. That 4-letter word, I change it based on some other random things, right? A, B, C, D, I change it with 5, 8, 9, 3. And only both of us who has, used that scrambling, we both are aware. And it is not something new. It is there in the history of, Mahabharata, Ramayana, all of those things also people have used this. Because I am sending you a message. If somebody reads it, he should not be able to understand it. You have seen these all movies, no? Somebody will send a blank letter, but you keep that letter on top of the candle or something, or you keep it on top of light. That's also simple examples of encryption, right? Next. So this has various methods: transposition, substitution, etc. Next is access control. Very important, right? When it comes to a boundary control, access control. Who has access? How is the user identified? You identify a person with a unique ID. ID can be email ID, mobile phone, a roll number, right? Next, you want to download your results or you want to log into ICA portal, only username is sufficient? No, you have to have a password. So authentication is with the help of password OTP. Then authorization, you are permitted to do only select activities. What are the select activities? Fill up the form, apply for some request, modification, etc. Then you may also have a concept of a PIN, which most of you from my ATM card perspective you have. Then there's an element of digital signature. So digital signature you understand as an electronic version of your signature, not a scanned signature. Okay, I have signed my name, that I scan it, that is not electronic signature. It's a digitized version which helps you to keep a track and trail of things. Then you have plastic cards. Plastic cards are all to do with PIN, digital signatures, all of those things, right? So here, what is the relevant audit trail control? Accounting audit trail and operational audit. Accounting audit trail is anything to do with who, what. Operational audit trail is to do with how much, right? Accounting audit trail, who was the person who logged in? What was the system or the device which was accessed? Operational audit trail, how much consumption, how much resource. So wherever your operational audit trail, it is to deal with how much. Wherever accounting audit trail is to do with who. For example, Gunda Banda, Hattu Idli Tinda. Gunda is the accounting audit trail. Hattu Idli is the operational. You getting it? Right? Slightly different. Gunda 10 gante banda, 10 vare tanka tintane idda. You're getting the logic what I'm trying to say? So who came is accounting audit trail. What damage, what they did, what consumption they did, that is to do with operation. Right? So this is, I'm talking from a boundary control. It is all to do with who, how much. In case of input, it will be what did he enter, how much did he input. You're getting the difference? So let's quickly go into input controls. Input controls are basically 4 broad categories: data code, batch, validation, auditor. In data code, what is there? Transcription, transposition. So you type some number or alphabets or digits, or you're calling up some person. Many times you realize when you call, 1 or 2 numbers gets interchanged, some other numbers appears, right? All of those things are transcription errors. Addition, new number; deletion, something is missing; substitution, replacement. Transposition is a unique type where 2 alphabets or digits are changed. This happens many times when you are preparing final accounts. In your 11th or 12th standard, or for that matter, even now, when you're preparing the accounts, balance sheet and trial balance never tallies. Right? Why? You have written everything right, but from one page to another page, when you are copying the closing balances, you have written 95 as 85 or 58. Right? Those are all class of transposition. Just one small tip for you, nowhere related to the subject. Anywhere when you are getting a balance sheet difference between asset and liability, whatever difference amount you get, divide that number by 9. If you divide that by 9 and you get an exact round number, not a decimal number, exact round number, that means your balance sheet has a transposition error. Right? This is how accountants was initially, Really very, very particular, because earlier, I still remember during my articleship, of course, I didn't do articleship like many decades back, but at least I saw some cases of manual bookkeeping. I was able to identify how this transition is there. But today, mostly everybody is digitized. So you pass one entry once, everything is sort of taken care. But I'm just giving you examples. In your examination, you don't have an automated system. You still have to manually write balance sheets, calculators, etc. So this could be a useful tip for you. Next, batch control. These are controls to do with transactions which are processed in a batches. What is the meaning of batch? A group of transactions which are processed together, right? If I'm uploading some 10 transactions, how do you know the 10 transactions are uploaded correctly or not? That is a batch control. How do I check it? I have uploaded 10. You check whether 10 are uploaded. That is called document or record total. Second scenario, I have uploaded 10 records totaling to 10,000 rupees. Is the 10,000 rupees matching? Yes, that is financial control. Then you have hash total, which is a non-mathematical or non-number field is added, but it does not make any sense. For example, I add all the invoice numbers. I add the invoice, I multiply the invoice number and the amount, right? So that total you can refer it as hash total. Sir, why do I have to do it? It avoids inter-adjustment. Line item number 1, student roll number 1, marks 2 it is reading. It is wrong, right? So I have to take care of that. Next is validation of data input. Again, you have various methods: field check, record check, batch check, etc. Then you have audit trails relating, accounting and audit trail. You can probably spend some time on. Then you have communication. Communication control, you have physical components. The transmission media. For example, you have a cable, right? You have a multiplexer, you have a modem, you have a port device. All these things are physical components. I am speaking from my house to your house. Let us say a small, we both are neighbors. House 1, house 2, house 3. We are sort of speaking. Somebody can, if I have a copper based or a telephone cable based, now that if I have a single wire, there is, let us say, a radio kept somewhere in between, the communication will have a trouble because electromagnetic interference will be there, right? Or if I have an electrical connection and telephone connection in the same line, I will always have an electromagnetic interference. So what I do in any city, if you see any well-planned city, if the power cables are on the one side of the road, the telephone cables will be on the other side of the road, or they'll be very, very low. It will not be in the same line, right? Because these are all physical component controls. Line error controls, flow controls, topological controls. Topological controls are how one software or one device is interlinked with other. For example, you can have a mechanism where all devices are connected to one device. Like your hotspot. You go to your friend's house, you want internet, all of you connect to his hotspot or router, right? Another method, I connect with Sunil. Sunil connects with Harsha. Harsha connects with Alfred. Alfred connects it with Thomas. So that method is also possible. So there are multiple methods. These are all called as topological controls, right? Then controls over subversive threats. Basically, somebody trying to speak with you, you are trying to hack that network and listen to that, right? Friend A and friend B are speaking. You put some, wire or something and, start to poke them, right? Next is processing controls. In processing controls, you have something called error detection and correction. You are processing something, you are identifying some error. So you want to detect and correct that, right? You are executing some data or some calculation at multiple stages and check whether this is an authorized value or not. Timing control, whether, sometimes you press exit also, you're getting same message. You press OK also, you're getting the same message. That's called as an infinite loop. Can I avoid those sort of things, right? Next is database control, again access. In database, very important one control is integrity. What is integrity? No unauthorized modification. No unauthorized modification, right? That's a very important control. What else is there? Output. Output is all to do with your, how the output comes, how the print program comes. In print, you have what is called spooling. How I club all of them and one after the other, I spool it and I print it. Who can print it, right? Online output, distributed output, right? All of these things are few examples. Quickly glance through. I'll just give a minute's time. Any questions you can ask me. All good? Okay. Next comes information system audit. This is the examination question which came in the last exam. What was the need for IS audit? You know, all these information, cost of data loss, cost of incorrect decision, all of those things, right? What are the objectives of audit? Again, this was asked as an examination question. Safeguarding assets, data integrity, efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is to do with numbers, saving time in better results. Effectiveness is to do with quality. Clear with this?
Yes.
Next comes tools for IS audit. Examination asked question. Snapshots, taking select snippets, but again, it is not literally a snapshot. It is, say, for example, at 7:20, what is the position each of them were? What is the reorder quantity level? What is the memory? What is the storage space? Something like that, right? Integrated test facility, where you introduce a dummy record and you see whether are some people trying to process the dummy record. Then is a scarf. It is called as an embedded, like scarf gets attached to your head. It's an embedded module. And CIS is a variation of scarf, but it goes and sits inside the database. Then you have audit hooks. These are just like a hook, which will, in the river, you put on a hook, some fish will from hook catch hold of that hook with the expectation. So that hook will probably catch hold of certain suspicious or a possible, non-natural or some sort of a camouflaged anything, any transaction happens, you can identify. Right. Next is audit trail. The whole purpose of audit trail are 4 things. First, identify unauthorized transaction. Right, you have a CCTV camera. Why do you have it? So that tomorrow if some unauthorized person enters, you can catch hold of. Second, you can reconstruct the event. Okay, something is stolen, alarm is ringing. By going to CCTV camera, you can see what all happened in the past. Right? Personal accountability. I know because somebody is written camera is there. Oh, I'll be very, very careful. Right? Next, what is the role of information system controls? Again, this is a repetition of what we read there. I'm not spending too much time. These are all audit related points they mentioned. So when you are reading this, you can read 3.4 and 3.6 together. I will quickly move to, this is very important. Audit of user access control, very important. Why? What do you do in user access control? I already told you, authentication with help of password OTP. Access violations. Have there been cases where somebody is consistently violating the rules? User account lockout. Most of your net banking has that feature, no? 3 times you enter the password, locked, incorrect, right? Intrusion detection system. These are devices who are trying to bypass, it can probably identify. Dormant account, very interesting. You have not used the account for 2 months or 3 months, right? It will say, okay, submit KYC or some OTP or something like that, it will say. Shared account, more than one person is using the same account. Very risky. Why? I do not know who's actually performed the transaction. If I ask you, you will say he performed. If I say he will say you performed. Right? So that's a shared account. Then you have system accounts. System accounts are all accounts, networks, applications, things to do. Then comes auditing password management, how the password is sort of configured, safeguarded. Then access provisioning, who issues the access, who approves the access, right? Is there a segregation of duty? What is segregation of duty? When I'm giving you access, I need to check you are not performing conflicting roles. Example, you are the fellow who is creating the purchase order. You are the same guy who is approving the purchase order. Right? If creation approval of the purchase order is done by the same person, what is the risk? I will create and I'll write whatever amount I feel like. I will create a fake purchase order to some random person. Worst is I am the guy who will also accepting the goods. Most dangerous. Why? I'll create a purchase order and I'll say I have accepted the goods. Fake purchase order, fake receipt of goods, but payment is real. Are you getting it? So those are all examples of segregation. Next, employee termination, very important. What is the process of terminating the access? Are you doing a user access review? What is access review? Who all have access? Why is that person required to have access? Should I terminate it or not? Right? You are moved from one department to another department, but your access is still not removed. right? Contractor, he's left the organization, but still he has access, right? Next, you have user access log. We spoke of logs. Then there are certain special cases, investigative procedures, internet point of presence, where the presence of you over the internet is sort of looked into, right? Then again, you have auditing the management controls, which I told you is a repetition of what we read before. In this, the first section, concurrent audit, parallelly you do the audit. Post implementation audit, that means after a transaction is over, you check it. Then you have general audit, overall approach and things like that. I will quickly move on to boundary controls. I think we have all spoken about all of this. Yeah, database related concepts. I think we already studied this, but just as a quick thing, database, file, record, field, characters. Say for example, I see a database. It's a collection of files. Each of you could be a file. Within your file or within a table, there are multiple records, right? Example, your marks at PUC, your marks at graduation, your marks at 10th standard. Now each record there'll be a field. Marks could be numbers. They could also be a grade, right? And field is a collection of characters, whatever is there, and character is bits and bytes. In case they ask in examination, please draw this table. Again, database has got 4 models: hierarchy, network, relational, object oriented. Hierarchy, parent child relationship. Network, one parent, many children, or parents to children. Parents to children. Relational database, multiple: parent to child, child to parents, children to parents, parents to child, all combination. What we call it as one-to-one, one-to-many, etc. Object oriented is basically for image, audios, etc. Right? Again, as much as possible, draw these examples, hierarchical and other things. We have spoken about all of those. I don't want to spend too much time here. Certain buzzwords like big data. Big data is data which has huge variety, huge volume, velocity, speed at which it is generated. For those of you who are searching in CAPS material, this will be immediately after the topic of data and database. In the institute material, this was there over there. For some reason, they have pushed it over here. That's right. Data warehouse is a extracted version of a primary data. You have a primary database, but you don't want all of the data come for analysis. So you extract some portion of the data. Data mining, digging the data to identify new patterns. Example, e-commerce big billion sale or Amazon Great Indian Festival happened. You are digging the data to identify any new patterns you can identify. Last is organization structure, a very, very small topic. Concept of what is organization structure, the roles and responsibilities, who reports to whom. That's basically organization structure. What is the advantage of it? You know the reporting hierarchy, it's useful for promotion, you know where you have to hire, etc. Right? Now in this, we have various types of roles. Owner is a guy who is ultimately responsible, right? Manager, he's a guy who is managing the process, and user is the end user. Then you have various titles like CIO, CTO, etc. All these are designations. Then you have organization structure. Normally the highest in a information technology is CIO, Chief Information Officer. Right? They have explained again what are all the various roles. Remember the role, very simple. Architect designs. Analyst is an interface. Developer, engineer, programmer is a guy who writes the code. Tester is only for doing the testing of the software. Similarly, database, architect designs, administrator defines, tries to put it into practice. Analyst is sort of a junior guy. Likewise for network, everywhere you'll find the same set of roles. Right? I think that's all. And last one is the concept of segregation of duties. I told you conflicting roles should not be given to the same person. Examples of segregation of duties, important examination question. Right? What are some examples of segregation of duties? You may probably have to write. Clear? So with that, we come to this end of this chapter. Open for any questions. Okay. So we quickly move on to chapter 2, financial and accounting systems. One of the most easiest chapter in your syllabus. Very, very easy. Right? So it starts off with a concept called as integrated and non-integrated system. This is not your costing integrated and non-integrated. Right? Here we are talking about maintaining one system for everything or maintaining many systems. That's basically the difference, right? If you are maintaining one system, then we call it as integrated. It is normally achieved through ERP. If we are talking about non-integrated systems, that means multiple systems for multiple purposes. Are you clear with this?
Yes, sir.
Just to break the ice before we get into the next section. Why do we say that you should not use mobile phones? This is a classical example.
Sir,
Are you able to see the screen?
Sir.
Yes, no?
Copyright issue ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
Visible, not visible.
Sir, copyright issue ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
Okay, sorry.
Please.
Okay, we'll come back to that later because I think there's a live recording.
Once the class ends, we'll discuss about it.
Okay, fair enough.
Or during break, I'll do 2 parts session.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so we'll come back to ERP and then we'll probably pause the sharing or something. Thank you. I missed that. Yeah. Okay. So ERP, integrated and non-integrated system. System is basically a collection of procedures, principles. The whole purpose of you having a system is you have a common objective which you intend to achieve, right? So on a jovial note, digestive system, a process which starts with right hand and ends with whatever, right? So just as a, don't get into the feelings of it, just understand the concept. Right, in a computerized system, very important, you have what is called master data, non-master data. Master, reasonably permanent, relatively permanent. Example, your name, your date of birth, all these are master. Non-master keeps on changing. Example, your age, right? Example, your weight, before exam, after exam, right? Keeps on changing. Sir, it's almost exceeding that weighing machine. Right? Next, master data. In master data, you have accounting master data, ledgers, vouchers, etc. Inventory master data, items, raw materials. Payroll master data, salary structure. Statutory master data, TDS and other things, right? Non-master data, these are all to do with which keeps on changing, right? Look into a journal entry, you should be able to identify master and non-master. Okay. Next, voucher types. Vouchers, you have various types: contra, cash to bank, bank to cash, bank to bank. Right, within that cash to bank, any possibilities, permutation. Payments, receipts, receipt is money coming in, payments is you making payment. Journal is where non-cash or non-bank depreciation, write-off, etc. Sales purchases, reverse of sales purchases is credit note, debit note. You may also have memorandum. What is memorandum? Say for example, you issued new shares. You issued 1,000 shares of 10 rupees each. Total is 10,000 rupees. But the 1,000 shares, while will you write? You will create a memo ledger. Why? You have to calculate earnings per share. For earnings per share, profit divided by number of shares. Where will you store the number of shares? You will store it in the memorandum. Right? Likewise, in inventory, you have purchase order, sales order, stock journal. Right? In payroll, you have attendance payroll. All of these are examples. You have voucher number. This is a unique. It should be serially numbered. Accounting flow, which I think all of us know. Transaction and the voucher entry has to be done by a human being. Rest all is done by the software. Today, voucher entry itself, machine is doing it, right? We're talking about advanced machines. Next, ledgers have got broadly debit balance and credit balance. We know what are the debit balance, asset and expense. We know credit balance is liability and income. Expense income goes into P&L, asset liability goes into balance sheet, P&L balance comes into balance sheet. That's how the structure is. Right? This is a very important thing, front end versus a back end. What is the front end versus back end? I remember I always used to give that restaurant example, right? And I think I've shown you that video also, that samosa which is being ordered and things like that. So front end is what you see or sense, right? Which is easy for you to understand. Back end, you cannot understand, only that fellow can understand, right? So a user interacts with the front end interacts with the back end, pulls the required information, so that the front end is again able to explain it to the user. Next, 3-tier architecture: app, OS, database. Application layer is where the layer where you have refined the configuration. For example, application layer receives the input. In your WhatsApp, your input is sent via the application layer. But operating system carries these instructions and process, and database sort of stores them. Important examination question: installed application versus cloud application. Installed, it is there in your system. Cloud application, it is there in your system as a very, very small file, or you use the internet to sort of access it, right? Next, accessibility. Some software is installed on the hard disk in case of installed application. Cloud-based, it is not installed. Mobile application, possible in installed application, but in cloud, it has become very much more agile and very much visible. Data storage is physically stored. In case of cloud, it is stored in somebody else's premises. Cloud, we also will be looking into one more chapter, but cloud is basically storing in somebody else's system or computer. Next, you have non-integrated system. Non-integrated system are HR, accounting, marketing, production. All of those becomes non-integrated system. Separate systems for each of them, right? Integrating is having one system for all. Example, ERP. Centralized database, accounts, HR, marketing, all of them can use it. Advantage of ERP, examination question. Just last time they asked. Information integration, lead time, on-time shipment, and all that stuff. Right? Few examples of ERP softwares. Need not spend too much time into that. Risk and controls in a ERP, important from an examination perspective. What are the risks? What you see on the left-hand side is the types of risk. For example, change management. People change, changing the scope, right? Employee job profile change, or there is ongoing changes in the planning function. There is a change in the vision, mission. All of those are the risks. What is the control? Give proper training. Ensure it's like every government change, they'll have a new idea, right? So let the one fellow says, I will use this money for road expansion. One more fellow says, no, I will use this for something else. So halfway through it is sort of built. So certain things you have to not change. That is what is called as a charter or mission, right? Training, not having an adequate training, control required is put in a proper training setup. Staff turnover, employees are leaving. So what you have to ensure, skill set is retained, knowledge is retained. Top management support, consultants, etc. So like this, there are a few risks which is sort of covered. Technological aspect, important examination question. Software functionality. ERP has different features, but not all features are working, right? So care should be taken to properly test it. Next, technological obsolescence. You're using a very outdated technology, so you need to periodically update the technology. Implementation aspect, legacy applications, old applications are not able to manage, right? ERP projects is very lengthy, so you need to focus on how the migration happens. Short projects, bigger results. Insufficient funding, no budgets, data safety, security, all of those becomes. Then one of the examination question, what is RBAC, role-based access control? It is basically a mechanism where you restrict the system access only to authorized users. There are two methods, MAC and DAC, mandatory, discretionary. MAC, everybody same, discretionary, variations. What are the types of access? Create, alter, modify, view, print, etc. This is just one case study, you can look into it. Auditing of ERP systems, there are broadly two things, general controls and application. General controls is what we studied in chapter 3, I'm not repeating. Application controls are all boundary, all of those things. Next, auditing aspects, physical safety, access control, functional audit, validation of inputs. All these things are repetition of IS audit, which we studied in chapter 3. Next is integration. In integration, we speak about what are the various integrations which are possible, right? For example, we speak about the accounting flow, etc. Again, in chapter 1, we will be studying, so I'll decide it there. Now, modules of ERP, very important, examination as question. Each of these modules could be asked. What they can ask you, explain any 4 modules, or you can expect a question, explain any of each of these 3, right? How does the financial modeling work? What is the tracking of inflow, outflow, right? Controlling module, what is the cost element, cost center, right? Activity based order, product costing. So all of this, whatever you studied, is basically your system which is being used for the functional aspects. Mostly you will be studying all of these topics even in your strategic financial strategic management, sales distribution, right? What are the various activities in sales, HR activities, payroll, recruitment, right? Then you have production planning, starting from master data, how your SOPs are defined, distribution is defined, right? Raw materials movement, material movement, all of this gets covered here. And then you have Q1, quality management, quality production and quality assurance, right? And then you have what is called plant maintenance, basically maintenance of your machinery, preventive maintenance, report, etc. Then project module, you create a project mostly suitable for service sector companies. Project number 1 is doing audit of a particular client, right? Or responding to income tax notice, or you developing some software. All of those could be project. Then you have supply chain module, again, raw material to consumer, how it reaches. Then CRM, customer satisfaction and customer reporting, or customer relationship management. Next, what do we have? This one very one. I think I've seen this question at least 3 or 4 times, which has been asked. What are the integration points in modules? Material and FICO, HR and finance, material and production, material and sales distribution. So these are all the integrations which are built between these modules. Then you have what is called MIS. MIS is nothing but a management information system, the tool that managers use to evaluate business processes. Features of MIS: RATs, relevant, accurate, timely, structured. And then you have a small topic on data analytics and intelligence. Quantitative data analytics, basically numerical. Qualitative, most focused on non-numerical data. Here you have 2 types, exploratory and confirmatory. Exploratory is more like a detective. You're identifying whether it's true or false. Confirmatory, you already know it, you just want to validate it. Data mining is all the same thing. BI, I think we spoke of in the previous chapter, business intelligence. Yeah, XBRL, extendable business reporting language, basically having a common protocol of business reporting across geographies. For example, in my country balance sheet, I will first share capital. Whereas some other companies may say owner's equity. In US, they use the word owner's equity. In UK, they might say just equity. So how do I know all the 3 are same? So have a common coding based on which you do a financial reporting filing. For example, I have a code called 100,100, that's share capital. 100,200 reserves and surplus, 100,300 current liabilities, 100,400 non-current liabilities. So if I have to aggregate all of this, do something for analysis across countries, across geographies, XBRL will be very handy, right? In this, what is called as XBRL tagging, I told you, revenue, each of them have a separate code. The last is various other regulatory requirements. So you can have a general requirement or specific requirement. A simple example they have tried to give you is having one accounting software and compliance software, having only a tax software. If you have only tax software, it is super specialization. If you have accounting and compliance software, it is good, but it will not give you all the super specialization. For example, you using GST, you using Tally for a GST software, GST purpose, is accounting and tax compliance software. You using a separate GST software is a only tax compliance, right? So that's the difference. I'll pause it here. Any questions? I'll quickly take it. Yes, Sunil.
Sir, what are the softwares that we can use for the financial accounting accounting systems?
You will find one topic called as ERP there, it will be there. But in general, you have starting from Tally, Zoho, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft Navis, and all of these are today modern age softwares. Clarified, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we'll do, we'll have a quick mini break. and we'll resume it after 5 minutes. Okay. All right.
Yes,
See you.
sir.
Hello. All right, let's quickly head back. We will head into chapter number 1, automated business process. Right. This is an extension of chapter 2. Why do I say extension of chapter 2? Is because it focuses on certain processes which are getting automated. It could be procurement, it could be sales, it could be anything relating to that space, right? So let's quickly see how this works. As always, again, the first chapter has the entire overview and the first section. You could spend some time quickly to understand what it is. Again, a very relatively easier chapter, so I'm not going to certain basic things, but yeah, this is an example of a simple sales process, right? So you need to there's an order which comes from the customer, there's a warehouse which triggers, accounting department is notified, debtors management is taking place, and customer service department is keeping a track of all of this. Examination question: enterprise business process model. What is a enterprise business process model? It consists of 3 broad sets, right? On the extreme left, what you see is the vision, strategy, business management. It is spread across the organization. On top, what you have is operational process, and bottom you have what is called management process. In a layman's language, operational process is all to do with revenue or value adding exercise. Management process is all to do with support, right? So your HR function, accounting function, information technology, legal, all of those are management support. But what is the core revenue? Whatever is the item which you see on top, which is operational process along with those linkages. Clear? Okay. Moving quickly further, again, there are examples of each of those. You can probably make a mention of that. Quickly going to automated business process. In this, we speak about a very important concept called BPA, business process automation. It is nothing but using technology to automate a business process. That's all it is, right? So what are the factors which affects a BPA? Confidentiality, integrity, availability, and timeliness, CIA, and then you have timeliness. Benefits of BPA, examination question, pure theory, look into it. I'm more interested on the 8 steps involved in a BPA, right? Before that, what are the business process which should be automated? Very nice question. What should you automate? Any task which is repetitive in nature, automate. Any process which requires multiple people to execute, automate, right? Because too many things. That's why if you see any of this call center today or helpline, most of the helplines you wait for 15 minutes, 20 minutes to be answered by a person. And many times when you call up, they will say, please use our app. In that you will type a question. What will happen? They will respond to it. Something like that will be there, right? So process requiring multiple people to execute a task is also getting automated. Time sensitive process. The time gap is very quick, very short. You need to do it. Time sensitive process. Or process involving need for compliance, audit trail, etc. All of those things get automated, right? Something has a significant impact on other processes. So all of these are areas which is to be looked at. Now, what are the challenges involved in business process automation, right? Automating redundant process, duplicate process. Redundant here means duplicate, right? But the biggest problem is people may not be able to help you out, right? Next, defining complicated process, because whenever you're trying to automate any process, there is a series of steps. Unfortunately, it might so happen that 3 things you automate, 2 things you do not know until you actually bring that, right? Staff resistance, implementation cost, etc. 8 steps for BPA implementation. Examination asks question, 5 marks or 6 marks or 8 marks it is asked. What exactly is the meaning of BPA, or what is the purpose? Why do you want to go for a business process automation? The reason is very simple. The existing process is having a problem. It could be manual process, it could be delays, it could be payment, customer satisfaction, whatever it could be. It is basically this first. Second, understand the rule and regulation. Which rule? What should I do? For example, I want to have a EOQ model of ordering. I need to have a real-time delivery of material. You understand what is the rule and regulation. Then you document the process which you intend to automate. What is it? what all documents required, where do they come from, what format, all of that stories, right? And then you start automating or implementing the business process automation, right? Next, define the goals, and the goals normally should we say is called a SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely. SMART, right? You want to clearly define, okay, today I'm taking 5 days, tomorrow I should take only 4 days. Should be measurable, monetary terms I should be able to quantify. Attain, I should be able to achieve it. I don't want to go to the Mars, right? I don't want to go to the moon. It should be an achievable thing. Should be relevant and obviously timely. Next, engage a business process consultants. People like you and me come into picture. We understand the process. Then we calculate ROI, because any process requires some investment, cost, money, resource. And then what is the benefit we are getting, right? Developing the BPI and testing them. So this is essentially the steps in work. There are a couple of case studies, you can go through it. I'm not spending time there. Risk and management, very important examination question, especially those MCQ. What is threat? What is vulnerability? All of those. So threat in a layman's language is any external event which can have a potential harm. COVID is a threat. If you have a weak immune system, that is a vulnerability. You're getting the difference? COVID is a threat, right? But what is the vulnerability? You having weak immune system. What is the vulnerability? You not wearing a mask, right? So those becomes a vulnerability. Once the threat exploits the vulnerability, then we call it as attack, right? Attack, right? So basically, that's basically how it can happen, right? Next, exposure. What is the extent of loss which could happen? In case of COVID, the extent of losses, human life itself could be impacted. Hospitalization, whatever. Likelihood, what is the probability? Attack, I already told you what it is, right? Countermeasure, what is it that I do to mitigate or reduce the risk, right? What is it that I do to mitigate this? And there's a beautiful chart which you can spend some time, just navigate through that, you get an idea. What are the sources of risk, or what are the types of risk? First, you have business risk. Strategy. Let's take an example. I think you are aware there is some concept called cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and all those. Let's say you started off a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency business. Tomorrow government says, boss, this is banned. Your entire strategy fails. That's a strategy. Financial risk. You thought that you will invest here, take here, money all will be available. But unfortunately, you realize that no money is there. Financial risk. Next, regulatory and compliance risk. Regulatory and compliance is you not adhering to the law, violation of law, etc. Operational risk. Operational risk is day-to-day operating activities. Say, for example, a very simple thing, a fraud being committed. Somebody sharing your password, right? All these are operational risks. Hazardous risk, especially in cases of coal mine industry, all those we notice this. Residual risk, very important. The risk which is left over after applying a control. Example, you got COVID even after wearing a mask. Residual risk, you can't do anything. Are you with me? So residual risk is that risk which is remaining even after countermeasures are analyzed and implemented. Are you clear? Next comes technology risk. Now technology is all downtime. You are trying to access one website, it says the website is down, it is not working, whatever, right? So that's a downtime risk. Next, obsolescence of technology. Very frequently technology changes. Today you thought you had the best phone. Within 3 months, 4 months, a better phone comes. Complexity of systems, too many these things, right? Different types of controls, different technology, alignment of business objectives and regulatory requirements, right? Dependency on vendors. This is a big risk. Why? Sir, vendors have to give you all the solution. What if vendor tomorrow runs out of business? So all your data is in that fellow software. That fellow, now I'll just give an example. Let's say tomorrow Zoom says we are going to shut down. So many people will not know how to set up a video conference. I'm just giving an example. Now you'll say, no, sir, we will use Google Meet, we'll use Teams, all those things. That is agreed. But imagine Zoom was the only player, right? So like that. Vendor concentration risk. Only 3-4 vendors are providing the service, etc. Right? So these are all few things. Then you have data related risk. Now this is in my material, it's again covered in 2 places. It's covered here in chapter 1. It's also covered in chapter 3. Data diddling, modifying the data. Bomb. Bomb is basically a piece of bad code which gets triggered or which explodes for a particular condition being filed. So your system gets sort of jammed, hacked, whatever. Christmas card. This is a message which was sent to all IBM employees somewhere in 2000. Basically, what it does is it came in front of the screen and nobody was able to do anything else. Right? It's like suddenly something was stuck on your face. You literally can't do anything with it. Right? Worm is something which will keep on duplicating itself. Rounding down, transaction value gets rounded down. Say for example, I have to pay 35 rupees, 55 paisa, right? So it gets rounded down, right? Next, salami technique. Salami technique is a scenario where it involves slicing of small amount of money, without nobody seeing. It's like, taking off one chocolate and keeping inside your bag, right? But daily you keep on doing it. Then you can make a chocolate factory in your right? Next, trapdoors. Some logic is sort of inserted, which allows you to process or not process certain things, right? Spoofing, faking the particular thing. Then you have what is called asynchronous attack. Asynchronous attack is basically those attacks which happen when there is a lag between me sending the information and you receiving the information. You remember I told you there could be two types of transmission, right? Synchronous transmission. Both of you are on call. We are able to speak. Asynchronous transmission. I send a message to you, but you will receive only when you switch on the phone. That's an asynchronous. So that means there is a data which is waiting to be sent. At that point, somebody goes and attacks, right? Data leakage, subversive, piggybacking. Then you have something called risk management strategies. There are 4 risk management strategies. First is accept the risk. Come what may, I feel the risk is too very slow or too very low, just accept it, right? Next, acceptance risk, sometimes also called tolerate. Next, eliminate the risk. Bad way better. Say for example, this particular software has a problem, don't use that software. This particular model has a challenge, don't use that challenge, don't use that model, right? Next, you have what is called sharing the risk. I share the risk with somebody else. Example, insurance. Example, let's say outsourcing, right? Mitigate the risk. I put in some controls to reduce the risk, like wearing a mask, wearing a helmet, things like that. Then you have a concept called ERM. ERM is basically enterprise risk management. It is basically ensuring that risk across the organization is managed, right? Now, what is the benefits of ERM? Your strategy and your risk appetite is aligned. Now, what is the meaning of that? Strategy and risk appetite. For example, what is appetite? How much can you consume, right? How much risk can you consume vis-a-vis your strategy, right? For example, if you look into these startup companies, they have a huge amount of risk, right? The strategy and risk has to get aligned. Linking the growth, risk and return. Linking the growth, risk and return. Enhance risk response, right? So these are few advantages. Now, how do you develop an ERM framework? Examination questions, 8 points. Internal environment. Internal environment is basically that environment which is internal within the particular organization. Just give me 1 minute. Sorry. So first thing is internal environment. Internal environment is basically all to do with management, ethics, philosophy, etc. For example, the ethics, philosophy and management style of Tata's may be different from Birla, may be different from Reliance, may be different from some other company. Next, objective setting. What is the objective you are trying to address? What is the specific problem you're trying to look at? Event identification. How am I identifying the event? What are the potential events that could have an impact? Because this is the most important thing today. Why? Now, today, a war happens in between Russia and Ukraine. See how it has so many implications. Why is US under recession? It is because the war between Russia and Ukraine. Why? Russia was a major supplier of oil, right? Now, oil, what happened? Russia decided not to supply to the rest of the world. What happened? Supply of oil reduced, price shot up, price of oil shoots up, inflation increases, Inflation increases, we have a lot of repercussions. Price increases. When price increases, you want to do more profit in your business, cut the jobs. Jobs are not there. It's a circular, right? So why I'm saying this is identifying an event at a very early stage is the most important. Then comes the risk assessment. How do you assess the risk, right? How exactly this entire risk assessment methodology and other things work, right? Then you have risk response. Risk response refers to a mechanism of how you are responding to an identified risk, right? Control activities. What are the control mitigation techniques? And last is information and communication. How are you communicating this, right? Last is monitor. So this 8 things are ERM. In this, you remove object setting, event identification, and risk response. It is the SA 315 framework, which will come to it a few minutes from, right? Controls. Now, what is controls? Controls is basically anything which is defined as a policy, procedure, practice, organization structure. Why? To give an assurance that your business objectives are met and undesirable events are prevented, detected, or corrected, right? So purchase, let's take an example, procure to pay. You have purchases, you have goods received, right? This is the entire process. So this entire process may have multiple controls. This controls could be manual control, automated control, right? If it's a manual control, a human being does it. If it's an automated control, machine does this. If it's a semi-annual control or semi-automated control, I do something, machine does the balance thing, right? Okay. Next, again, an important examination question, information technology general controls. It is known as infrastructure controls. These are basically, what do you say? Controls which work across the organization, right? And this works across all the environments, all the processes, all the components, etc. Right? So under that, the first thing which you have is InfoSec policies. Do you have policies? How does it work? What in layman's language, you understand a set of rules. So if you say a company, let's say Reliance or a Tata, now they're dealing with certain sensitive information of customer. How are they going to protect it? That's an information security policy, right? Administration, access, authentication. How is admin function? How is access? How is authentication taken? Separation of key functions. So there are some people who are performing certain key activities. How are we logically separating them? Management of system acquisition and implementation, change management. So all of these are few examples of general controls. Examination asked question. Backup and recovery. Am I taking up the backup? Am I restoring the backup? I am taking all the backup and keeping, but tomorrow I'm not able to restore. The whole purpose is getting defeated, right? Next comes application controls. Again, we studied this in chapter 3, not touching upon it. It's the same repetition, right? Now, again, here you're talking about SA 315, which talks about 5 components of internal controls. The same thing is repeated. Control environment. There it is called internal environment. Here it's called control environment. That's the difference, but otherwise it's the same structure. Risk assessment. Then you have control activities, information and communication, and monitoring of these controls, right? Next, risk and controls for specific business process. Again, here you have configuration, masters, and transactions. Now, risk could be at the configuration level, at a master level, transaction level. Configuration, if your configuration is incorrect, the whole setup goes for a toss. Example of configuration is you bought a new mobile phone, you are configuring it for the first time. You mention a different time, saying that you are in India time, but you mention, let's say, Dubai time or Australia time. The whole configuration will be different, right? That's a configuration. Master, something which is reasonably constant or standard. Transaction, which keeps on varying. Now here what happens, you have risk and control for all the 3, right? At a configuration, what are the issues which can go wrong? At a masters, where it can go wrong. At a transaction level, where it can go wrong. At a master, you can have a vendor master, customer master, whatever. We discussed again in chapter 2. All of these details are examples of masters. Transaction, every transaction, scenario to scenario, it will change. Now, procure to pay, if I take as a transaction, as a particular case, at masters, what are the risk and what is the control objective? Please bear in mind, this first chapter alone has risk and control objectives. The rest of the chapters has risk and the actual control. I repeat, this chapter has risk and control objective. Other chapters has risk and control, right? There's a small presentation wise, there's a difference, but nevertheless. Now, what is the meaning of a risk? Negative thing. What is the control objective? Remove the negative thing, that becomes your control objective. Unauthorized changes to supplier master file. What is control objective? Only authorized changes are made to supplier master. Risk. All valid changes are not input and processed. Control objective. All valid changes are given as an input and they are processed. Changes to supplier master are not correct. Control objective. Say changes to supplier master is always correct. So like that, if you look into it, you'll find the risk and the control objective. And the beauty about this is, if you prepare or remember one table, every process you can alter it. Because if I say sales process, instead of vendor, what will you write? Customer. If you say HR, you will say employee. If you say inventory, you will say goods. If you say general ledgers, you'll talk about ledgers, journals, files, whatever is created, right? So let us, this can keep on varying. At a transaction level, again, you can have various risks. Unauthorized purchase requisition, purchase order are not entered correctly, purchase orders are not input adequate, right? And last, you will find some 2-3 points. System access to process transaction is restricted to all the users or not restricted to authorized users. So control objective is, it is restricted only to authorized users. Clear? This is procurement. What you see next to see is sales. Sales is also called as order to cash, right? Same setup, but here you'll find customer. Again, same setup in transaction. 1 or 2 risks will be different. So my suggestion when you're preparing these tables, remember 5 common things. Remember 3 different things. I repeat, remember 5 common things across. Remember 3 different things for each of them, right? Not spending too much time here. Because it's a quick recap what we are trying to do. I'll quickly go into yeah, by the way, this was the question which was asked in this exam. We just read fixed asset, what is the process, right? Then you have something called diagrammatic representation of business process. That is where you have flowchart. Last few exams, at least 1 or 2 exams, I've noticed flowchart not specifically asked, but they ask as a small gist or a small this thing. So understand in say layman's language, flowchart is flow of data or flow of business process, right? A simple example of a flowchart is, you know, what you are looked in over here. For flowchart, I've given you additional material, so please go through it. That is, I think, some 10 or 15 pages or 20 pages will be there. Please glance through it, right? Let me quickly go into, yeah. So you normally have start, clear all working locations, read or input. Now here is the purchase mode website, give this discount, no, right? And in flowchart, I've already told you do's and don'ts. Maybe towards the end, as a quick recap, flowchart will always move left to right, top to bottom, right? We normally use 2 or 3 symbols. This sort of a circle or ellipse, whatever you can call it, is start or stop, right? This is for processing, which is a rectangle. Input and output is this symbol, what you have noticed over here, right? This is an input or output. And in case of print, we use the same thing like here, but it'll be cut. So it'll be like something like this, right? That will be a print, right? And very important, one of the things which we should not forget is, whenever one process is concluded, please draw the line after the process. Don't link it like this, because if you link it like this, then the data gets overwritten. Clear? So these are few basics which you have to remember, and then there's a concept of loop, you know, when it should keep on running in loops. Yeah, so not spending too much time into this. Then there's a concept of data flow diagram. It's again, data flow diagram is a little bigger and broader. It explains the flow of data rather than just a particular process. So it could be across multiple processes, but flow of the data. Quickly moving into, yeah, these are all whatever processes we spoke of. This is called as a swim lane diagram. Just like a swimming pool has got different lanes. So the first lane is customer lane, second lane is sales, third lane is credit. So each of the department have their respective roles and responsibilities. What else is there? Yeah, next is regulatory and compliance requirements. So what are all the legal obligations? Companies Act they speak of, Section 143 talks about powers and duties of auditors. In that, the auditor has to report on the internal financial controls and operating effectiveness. This is popularly called as IFC or ICOFA. Right, and talks about auditor's responsibility. Then you have Information Technology Act. It defines what is sort of cybercrime, identity theft, hacking, etc. Then there are some types of computer-related offenses. For example, harassment via fake profile, email account hacking, and things like that. And then there are some key definitions of Information Technology Act. What is computer, computer systems, network access, etc. Need not remember the definition, but just have a cursory glance through it. And 43 section is important. Section 43 important. Penalty for or a compensation for damaged computer or computer system. What happens if system goes wrong or a damage or a malicious attack is being introduced, right? 43A talks about compensation. So in case I give my data to you and you do not protect the data adequately, you are liable for compensating me. That's called as a compensation. And these are other provisions relating to the punishments, etc. Not going too much into the depth of it. Some things on advantages of cyber laws. Concept of data privacy and privacy online. Just a view the view. Privacy is how your personal information is protected. Simple. How your personal information is protected. You keep on getting calls, right? Sir, loan beka, idu beka, adu beka, and all those things, right? So those are all where your personal information, somebody has tried to do some mischief. Anything else which is important in this chapter? Yeah, I think that's about it. Any questions on this before I move to the chapter number 5, core banking software? Okay. The core banking chapter is a very, very specialized chapter exclusively focusing on core banking systems. Considering the banking environment and the banking setup, I think this is considered to be important today, right? So it talks about various things which is mentioned over here. Quickly get into it. Not speaking of what does a bank, what is the role of bank. I think you guys are all aware of that. Functions of bank: acceptance of deposit. Deposits are FD, term deposits, etc. Oh, here it is. Granting of advances, giving loans, remittances, online transfers, collections, collecting money on your behalf, like for example, check collection, clearing a check, right? Then you have some special services like LC, letter of credit guarantee, giving a guarantee on behalf of you, credit cards, debit cards. Then you have high net worth individual banking. You have retail banking, corporate banking. They also provide certain incidental services like life insurance, non-life insurance, and things like that. Okay. Next comes what are the various examples of core banking software? And by the way, what is a core banking software? It is one common integrated banking solution for all purposes, right? Across entire country or even abroad, wherever you're going to this bank, your account details will be the same and it is accessible. They may charge you, but it is accessible. And one very important thing is core banking software is always modular in nature. What is modular? It has multiple modules. Whichever module you want, you can install. Right? So you have a variety of front end and back end. Front end applications are all phone banking, internet banking, the one which we use. Back end is basically where the data is stored. ATM switch, back office, etc. Next is the few features of core banking software. Transactions are posted immediately. Database is updated simultaneously. You have centralized operations and things like that. Architecture of core banking system, interesting thing. You have what is called as a database server. That is where the data actually resides. Your transaction, your balance, your employee, your customer rates, FD interest rates, loan rates, all of them sit there. Application server is where the logic is written. For example, I am transferring money from my account to your account, right? The database will say how much balance is there in my account and your account. The application will say, hey, You are trying to transfer 30,000, whereas the balance itself is only 3,000. So application server will say transaction failed. Are you with me? That is basically the logic of the application server. Are you with me? Right. Next, automated telling machines. I think most of us know today your ATM machines are, sort of what we are looking into, and this pulls the data from a switch or from a centralized database. Then you have internet banking channel server, internet banking application server. Internet banking channel server is basically where your details are stored, such as your name, password, all of those things. Internet banking, what is this called? Application server is where the internet banking logic is different. Then you have web server. If you have visited a bank, they sort of key in the data and transactions are going on. That's a web server. Then you have proxy server. This is basically a dummy server or a dummy server to allow certain transactions to make, or to allow certain systems to make indirect connections. So you don't want, every transaction to go from A to B, B to C, C to D. You want A to D directly. Proxy can probably help. Antivirus server, which has the antivirus software. Anti. Okay. Next, technology components over here. I think we spoke about this database application. Then we have cyber security, network configuration, which is a combination of firewall, LAN, all of those things. Then you have application security, which is basically your bank specific domains, two-factor authentication. What is two-factor? Every time you log in addition to username, you also need to have password. You need to periodically train the employees, right? Required to conduct effective due diligence when you are onboarding customers, or when you're onboarding third parties. Let's say a software company is providing service to a bank. The bank has to verify and validate whether the software company is genuinely doing the service. Otherwise, tomorrow the software company does some manipulation of numbers. These guys go for a toss. Data center, this is basically where the dedicated place where servers, etc. will be there. Banks will sort of, have extra amount of security over it, right? In core banking, some of the things we have to build is information flow of information, focus on customer, right? Keeping customer in mind. Regulatory compliance, look at the regulatory law requirements. Resource optimization, optimize the resources. Then your functional architecture, these are basically what all you can do with the core banking software. That's in layman's language. That's an easy way for you to understand. Internet banking process, other things are there. I'm not spending too much time there. Yeah. Implementation of core banking, examination as question. What are the phases? Planning, approval, selection, etc. Now comes the element of risk and controls. So in risk management, again, there's an element of risk management which we speak of. The first thing is called operational risk. What is operational risk? Day-to-day risk, right? Transaction processing risk. I am processing a transaction which I am not supposed to be processing, right? That's a simple example of that. Next, information security risk. Information security risk is I have some sort of a virus attack, etc. Then legal risk, regulatory requirements, compliance risk, people risk, all of this. Then you have credit risk. That is, you give a loan and that fellow took the loan and went off to UK and he said, I'll not pay. Right? So that is an example of a credit risk. Right? He is not paying you. Market risk. Market rates are fluctuating, as a result, your business changes. Strategic risk. Your business is, you invested or you gave loans. Classical example that SVM Bank or SVB Bank, if you have read, it gave loans or it had all customers relating to startups. And all the startups started withdrawing the money overnight. So what happened? Right? Strategy itself went for loss. Then you have IT risk, the technology failure, the data failure, any of the processes failure, and things like that. Access control, change management. Then you have a security policy, which is mandatory for every bank. And this should be predominantly driven based on ISO standard 27001. Right? These are all the elements of that. Then examination question, risk and controls with respect to IT security. Please note here it is risk and controls. Chapter number 1, it is risk and control objective. Here it is the actual control. So they've given some controls away. Example is a risk of unauthorized access, right? So you are saying super user or administrators are, passwords are changed. Only some restrictions are given only to administrators. Not everybody can do whatever they feel like. Lack of management direction, right? Security policies are established. Potential loss of confidentiality of data. Vendor default passwords are changed, etc. Then what are the internal controls in banks? Examination question: job rotation, frequent movement of power and people, financial administration of each person post decided, periodical audit, right? Books are balanced regularly, right? And a few examples of IT controls: log in, log out, transactions, dormant activities, all of these are recorded. Then controls in bank application software. What are various controls in bank application software? Configuration, master, transaction report. At a configuration, one time how you set up. Master is customers or master, employee master. Transactions are day-to-day activities, right? And reports, who can access what report on a daily basis. Next, these are again certain key processes. The first process we study is called CASA, or current account and savings account, right? So it's all about how account is opened and activated. So first customer applies, the KYC process is done, then risk assessment is done, and then they give you an opening of the account, right? So what is the risk? What are the controls is given? Next is credit card. Here it's a little similar to that of a CASA account, but difference is I need to assess your credit worthiness. Only if you are worthy of it, I will give you a credit card. Otherwise, why will I give you? Right? So that's a small change in process. Then you have what is called in a credit card system, you have a sales authorization process and clearing process. Again, this could be an examination question. In case of a sales authorization process, you go to a system, swipe the card, right? You go to, let's say, a Big Bazaar and swipe the card, or today it's called Reliance, right? Reliance Smart Point or something, Smart Bazaar. You go there and swipe the card. The moment you swipe the card, what happens? The merchant bank will pay the money to him immediately or on the next day. And you have to pay to the credit card company after a predetermined period, right? So sale authorization happens, and the next day what happens is called clearing process. Then is mortgage. Mortgage is loan against property. It's again, you have a home loan or top-up loan. Top-up loan is you already have a loan, you are taking an extra loan, right? You have again process which is sort of explained over here. Then you have treasury process. What is treasury? Treasury is more to do with government securities, government FDs, investment in futures, options, etc. All of those things are called as treasury operations. Here you have three roles: front office, middle office, back office. Front office decides the trade. Middle office supplies the information, does risk assessment. Back office is merely doing accounting work. Next, you have loan and trade finance process. Basically, fund-based loan, non-fund-based loan. What is fund-based loan? I'm giving you an overdraft. I'm giving a term loan. These are all called fund-based loan. Non-fund-based loan, what are these? I am giving you a limit. If you want, you use it. Otherwise, don't use it. That is your choice, right? These are again the process flows there. Yeah. Then there's something called a Basel, which is more of a risk-based reporting. Very small topic. Then you have what are the various regulatory requirements. Obviously, you have the Banking Regulation Act itself. Under that, and then you have the anti-money laundering, right? Money laundering is basically converting dirty money into clean money. You would have read this, what is this, Shivaji movie, if you have seen, right? He tries to do all those fancy stuff, right? That's a classical example of money laundering, right? Placement of money, taking the money away from the place of crime and bringing that money back into a nice or a decent form. So placement, layering, integration. Examination asks question. Many times they've asked this particular question. Next is the concept of cyber crime, and last is Banking Regulation Acts, Negotiable Instrument Act you speak of. Then there is RBI regulations, right? And what are the various types of offenses under money laundering? One very important, under money laundering or anti-money laundering, all financial entities will have to preserve the records for 10 years, and KYC becomes mandatory. And in case if you fail to do, punishment and other things come into it, right? So I think that's about this chapter. Anything else which is critical? I think that's about it. Any questions? Sorry. Last, we move on to chapter 4, Ecom, Mcom, and Emerging Technologies. In Ecom, Mcom, Emerging Technologies, this chapter is the latest version or the latest chapter, however you can call it. It has a lot of interesting aspects to discuss, components, architecture, etc., and some emerging technologies. E-commerce in a layman's languages, how business or transactions are happening over the internet, right? E-commerce, if you do, it is basically driven through mobile apps. It is driven through your electronic ways in which you are actually transacting, right? In case of a normal method, you have manufacturer, wholesaler, retailer, right? In case of an e-commerce, you sit at your home and you're basically purchasing. In a simple language, if you are doing shopping from home, that's in simple language, like work from home. Shopping from home, if you do, that's an e-commerce, right? There's a comparison of between what is e-commerce and other things. You can go through it. Next is illustration of an e-commerce transaction, the step-by-step activities. Since most of you are being using all of these products, I don't think we have to spend too much time. You could relate it with a Swiggy or a Dunzo or whatever you're talking, right? Or booking on Ola, Uber. All of these are e-commerce, but they operate in a different. Don't think only a Flipkart is an e-commerce, right? Next, what are the benefits? Convenience, time saving, all of those things. Buyer and seller, you're able to reach across multiple geographies. For government, a lot of transaction gets automated, right? Disadvantages of e-commerce: internet beke beko, right? Few seconds you don't have internet, you'll be completely lost, right? Cost is there, legal issues are there, right? Next, you also require that marketing related things. So what are the various things which you do? You may have a specific portal, you may have an electronic shop, electronic mall, right? Under this, you may have specialized malls, specialized stores. All these are various examples. For example, 19acres.com is a website which specializes only in buying, selling property, right? General store, it could be a Flipkart sort of a e-auction sites are there. Buyer aggregators, Zomato is a classical example, right? Virtual community, you have a community of people who share, interact, and sort of do that, right? E-distribution, you may have an electronic distribution system, companies like Wipro do it. E-procurement, again a mechanism of enabling procurement systems. Now, e-commerce business models, this will keep changing, but from a theoretical perspective, you need to be aware. B2C, business to the consumer. Then you have business to business, right? Consumer to consumer, basically auctioning sites and OLX sort of thing. Consumer to business, consumers are selling it back to the business, more of e-distribution or reverse cases, etc. Like for example, electronics acquisition, right? You are selling your mobile phone. So that's a classical example of a C2B, consumer to business, right? Resale of your laptops, right? Consumer to government, government to consumer, all these are various solutions. Now, what are the components of e-commerce? I think this one chart, this itself looks like a robot, but it is. So on one side you have technology, other side you have vendor, you have the tech infra, and then you have the users, right? I think it's self-explanatory, not spending too much time there. In this, what is important is there's a concept called data interchange. Basically, how data between my system and your system are interchanged. Because I am an e-commerce vendor, you are an e-commerce, you are one of the vendors who is supplying, who's selling products through Flipkart. Let's say I am Flipkart, you are selling some products through me, and there's one end customer, right? So the flow of data between both of us is important. You don't have material, but you say I have material, and the customer orders. What happens? To you, it becomes a rejection, failure, and all of that story, right? Internet network, web portal. So all of those things are probably issues we have. Then you have architecture, 2-tier and 3-tier. 2-tier is presentation and database, simple and easy, but problem in scaling, right? Then you have 3-tier, presentation, application, and database. Most practically used. This application layer is basically like a middle layer. Application layer, as I kept on telling, is where the logic is. Presentation is what you see. Database is what is stored, right? Next, you have also called m-commerce. I think e-commerce, m-commerce today has become merged, right? Basically, using a mobile phone is basically m-commerce. Examination question: risk and controls relating to e-commerce. Privacy, because you bought something or you choose to buy something, next 5 days that product is following you everywhere. Why are you not buying? Why are you not buying, right? Next is security. Your transactions probably get exposed. Quality issues, delay in goods, hidden cost, security, credit card issues, infrastructure, and things like that. right? What are the controls in a business environment? Users, mandatory, you need to have it registered. That's why any e-commerce website you go, first they say register, enter your mobile number, then enter OTP, right? Unless I've validated you are a original guy or a person, I will not go ahead and ship your goods. Likewise, buyers and merchant have to be genuine. Government has to keep a track of that. Service provider should be there, transportation partner should be there, technology partner should be there, payment gateway should be there, etc. Right? Then these are few examples of case studies you can just probably look into. Cyber security risk consideration, it could be a financial direct impact or an indirect impact. Essay 315 talks about what are the risks which you have to assess. It's again a repetition what we studied in the previous chapter. Next is few guidelines for e-commerce. Billing should be standardized. That's why if you buy something on Amazon or Flipkart, whether you bought product A or product B, the bill format will be same, right? It is standardized. Guarantee, warranty, shipping, delivery, all of these have to be standardized. Regulations applicable: income tax, GST, Companies Act, Factories Act, Customs. You can mention a few of these regulations. These are few issues which could probably arise on electronic transaction. Special law governing e-commerce, Information Technology Act, obviously. Then you also have, to a limited extent, FEMA regulations as well. RBI and FEMA regulations. Because e-commerce has to deal with money, right? The money, e-commerce cannot use that money. E-commerce, like for example, Flipkart, you are paying money to Flipkart, but Flipkart cannot use that money for itself. It has to pay to the vendor. So what Flipkart will do, it will keep in a separate account, which is governed by RBI. And after once in 10 days, 15 days, it will go release that money to various vendors. Yeah, what are the few things which has just resulted in e-commerce revolution? Mobile phone devices are huge. Internet is available. Jio is giving internet for free, right? E-commerce is available. Biometrics, artificial intelligence, all these things are few examples. Next is digital payments. In this, we have the traditional method of payment: cards, credit cards, smart cards, etc. Then you have modern method, UPI, Beam. I think one of the most popular methods. Today, even Pani Puri fellow or Tender Cooknet fellow, you make payments through this, right? IMPS, immediate money payment system, but I require certain details of yours. Mobile apps such as Beam, mobile wallet like a Paytm wallet, Aadhaar enabled, using Aadhaar number I make transfers, USSD, *99 hash, etc. Mobile banking, I have mobile banking apps. Cryptocurrency, again today it is not legally tenable in India, but is basically currency which is digitized form, which does not have any physical facility at all, right? It's basically all the transaction of a cryptocurrency is safeguarded with the help of crypto. Next is e-rupee. This is something which is newly launched in India last year, but this year some specific use cases have done. It is India's own digital currency, where it is like a point-based system. Using that voucher or the QR code or that string, you can go and redeem against authorized users. Say, for example, you have to get a medical test done in for employees. They give this e-vouchers. You take that e-voucher, go to the hospital, and you can encash it and perform this test. Then very important. So, okay, any questions until here before we head into emerging technologies? Okay, we now move to a very interesting section towards the last. That's called as the cloud computing technologies. And there's three things are there: virtualization, grid, cloud. Virtualization is physically one, virtually many, or physically many, virtually one. Example, I have one huge hard disk. I split that hard disk into 10 virtual drives. So each of you will have access to that one particular virtual drive, right? Or it's like a building. I divided into small boxes. Each person has that particular access only to that box, right? That's virtualization. And basically the concept is partitioning. Why? Either you can consolidate many small systems into one server, use it for disaster recovery, use it for training, create portable applications, workstations, etc. What are the types? You can create a hardware virtualization where the device itself is split, or network virtualization where the entire network is split. Say, for example, in your own home, you have 100 Mbps speed. You split 50 Mbps for your brother or sister who is working. maybe 10 Mbps or 20 Mbps for you because you're attending classes, and 5 Mbps for, let's say, your parents or your junior sibling, whatever, right? Storage virtualization, you can create a virtual storage system, right? Then you have what is called grid. Grid is a next version of virtualization where unused resources are shared. For example, imagine your internet plan daily is 1 GB, but every day you have some 200 MB, 300 MB, etc. And your brother, sibling, sister, whoever is there, they want to use that unused speed, unused internet. So that's called as a grid computing. It's where each resource is shared with every other person, right? And you are basically making use of underutilized resources, and you're also doing a resource balancing, right? You're creating a parallel CPU, you're creating virtual resources, all of this. Then comes types of resources. Here you can do computation, right? The most common resource is computing cycles, processors, machines, etc. Then you also have storage. Storage is more to do with how you store the data, what are the common parameters there. Then communication, how you're going to use it for communication purpose. Your licenses, instead of you buying 10 licenses, you can just buy 3 or 4 licenses, and that license can be shared, right? Next, where all can you use grid computing? Examination question, civil engineers, insurance company for mining data, etc. Very important is the security aspects in the grid computing, right? Because I am using your underutilized resources. So my system has different security, your system has different security, it will not sync, right? So we need to have, and imagine every time I log into my system, then I have to log into your system, it becomes difficult. So single sign-on solution, one time sign in, it goes through. Resource management, data management, all of those becomes very handy. Then this unused resources, to make it better utilized, we said probably we must go ahead and use a better technology, because unused resources within an organization is grid. If you use it across companies, entities, etc., we can call it as cloud. So one company goes ahead and invests huge server space like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. And people use that small storage space. That's called cloud, right? Cloud, in simple languages, your computing resources is basically used as a service model, right? You can access via tablet, laptop, desktop, etc. Few examples of features of cloud. Examination question: elasticity and scalable. More you want, the more you can keep. Less you want, less. Pay per use. If you're using, you pay. Don't use, don't pay. It's available on demand. Resilient. That means even tomorrow some disaster happens, I can recoup and recover. Multi-tenancy. Multi-tenancy is very important feature of a cloud. Multiple users can access at the same time. At the same time, you are maintaining an isolation. An example: you have a huge building, in that you have multiple apartments, right? Many people are staying in that apartments, right? Each of them in that apartment have their own privacy, but there are common things which you actually have, right? So it's the same building, but each floor has its own. So multiple tenants you can have, so multiple customers you can have. So Zoom, CAPS is also using, let's say, your college is also using, my office is also using, but all of them are different accounts. So that's a tenant, there's another tenant, there's another tenant, multi-tenant, right? Workload movement and things. Next, advantage of cloud computing: achieve economies of scale. I am able to achieve broader economies of scale, cheaper things, and etc. Reduce spending on technology infra. I can save heavily on my technology infra, right? I can globalize the workforce. I can streamline the business process, capital cost, and things like that. What are the disadvantages of cloud? The disadvantage of cloud is that I cannot, if no internet, I cannot do anything. And security is a major concern, right? So that's the disadvantage. Again, this cloud can have various types. Private cloud, dedicated only for an organization. Then you have public cloud, anybody in the world can use it, right? You have something called as a hybrid cloud, something public, something private. And last is community cloud. Community cloud is basically for a company secretaries, for chartered accountants, or for a particular doctors, for a specific line of community. Then you have very important computing models or service model. And this computing model or service model is based on 3 things. Give me a minute. Yeah. So, computing service models. There are three models basically: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. I always keep on giving this example. Imagine a building. You build the building in such a way only walls, probably washrooms, electrical connections are given. That's all. You decide what you want, right? So you are given the entire building as an infrastructure. You could make a PG, you can make a hostel, you can make a hotel, you can make it a restaurant, you can make it as a boarding facility, or you can make a corporate office. Everything is yours. So infrastructure as a service. So you are giving them the setup. You decide how you want. The most popular infrastructure as a service today is three companies: Amazon, Azure, Google. These three are the most popular. Then you have software as you have platform as a service. I construct the floor, I keep some facilities, I keep some tables, chairs, or whatever basic design is there, walls, partition. You can use the interiors, you decide how you want to. So I've set a platform for you, you decide how you want to use it. Then a software as a service today, which you are seeing in most of these plug and play office. Everything is ready, you come use the system and go, or you use the place and you go. That's a software as a service. In this, there are various models. You can probably spend some time and look into it. And in caps notes, I've given a lot of short forms and memory codes. Please go through that. Right. Issues relating to cloud, threshold policy. To what extent I can use the cloud? Is it permitted, legally permitted, etc. Interoperability. One cloud speaking with other. Right. Security concern, because everything is sitting in Amazon. Amazon gets attacked. Everything gone. Right. Then you have mobile computing. This is basically using the 4G communication or radio wave sort of communication to speak. In this, you require mobile communication, you require a hardware, then obviously you require a software. Then you have benefits of mobile computing, again, examination again. Limitations or challenges in mobile computing, examination question. Insufficient bandwidth, security, power consumption, all of those. Then you have green computing, basically eco-friendly measures of computing. Then you have BYOD, bring your own device. Basically, you are using your own laptop, your own mobile phone for office purpose, right? So that way, what you're trying to do, you are trying to ensure that cost is saving from an organization perspective. But what is the challenge? The challenge is your data is in employee's laptop. So tomorrow, if employee laptop crashes, or if somebody hacks your employee laptop, your data goes, right? Any virus attack to that. So it has its own advantages and disadvantages. BYOD threats is a very popular examination question. Network risk, device risk, application risk, implementation risk. Then you have something called Web 3.0. It's called a semantic web. Basically, computers are used to generate data on their own without user interaction. Today, that's what is happening. Today, we're talking about smart computers, smart systems, smart cars, right? Everything is smart except human being, unfortunately. But that is the era we are heading into. You know, Chat GPT, I don't know what all names are coming, right? So it has Web 3.0 has two things: semantic web, web services. Semantic web is it provides a common framework so that without boundaries, systems and people can speak, right? And web services are basically, you know, application softwares like, you know, Insta, Facebook, all of those things. Then certain emerging topics, IoT, devices speaking with each other, right? Your car speaks to your AC. So you are starting your car, the car knows that, you know, you have typed go to home in your car. So car is sending a message to AC saying that, hey, you know, I will be there in next 15 minutes. So switch on the AC now. Or switch on the heater now, so that the heater is kept at the temperature what is necessary. You come back, you have a shower and things like that, right? Wi-Fi, you know, various things. Next is you also see various applications, like for example, you have under this government Swachh mission, you can tag all dustbins with IoT sensors. So whenever a dustbin is sort of filled, it will give a alert message. Municipal government can, you know, sort of clear. It has its own challenges, not very effectively implemented, but I'm just giving an example. Another scenario could be based on ambulance coming in, signal could change. Your smartwatches, right? Smart city, all of these are examples of IoT, right? Obviously risks is there, risk relating to business, risk relating to storage, obsolescence of devices. I'm sending information, what if somebody hacks it, attacks it, right? All of this. Then you have artificial intelligence. It is basically machines trying to simulate a human being, right? Trying to replicate, right? Basically, a machine is trying to think like a human beings, and therefore it is working based on certain set of rules. For example, video recognition, text recognition. A classical concept is it uses something called NLP, natural language processing. So you speak to Amazon, Siri, Google Assist, it is able to understand. That's natural language processing, right? Machine learning, ability of the machine to learn and get improvised better and better, right? Applications are huge, autonomous vehicle, medical diagnosis, all of those things. Then you have something called blockchain. Blockchain in a layman's language is, let's take a scenario. Every transaction is validated by one or more player, thereby eliminating the need for reconciliation. Simple example, I have done a transaction with you. You have done a transaction with a friend, right? Now, obviously in my system, I would have recorded, your system, you would have recorded, or your system, you forgot, my system, I forgot. There is always a difference. So what if our both systems I recorded at the same time? What if at both systems, only after approval, the transaction gets recorded? This concept is basically driven by a blockchain, right? So first, the systems are distributed in nature. I repeat, the systems are distributed in nature. What is distributed in nature? That I have the database, you also have database, both of them have a version of the database. So no longer centralized, distributed, first. Second, it's a peer-to-peer. You and I are on par with each other. It's not that you are a server, I am a client. No, both of them are on par. Clear? And third, very important, it is an open ledger. That means transparent. I can see yours, you can see mine. So where is the question of differences? Agree? Now you can say, sir, what if this data gets deleted? So it is encrypted. And even if something has to happen, both of us have to agree, right? So that's a simple layman's language, right? So this can ensure, I am sending money to you, you are sending money to me. Instant settlement is possible, right? It is encrypted. Nobody can reverse a transaction. And every time a transaction takes place, it is added to what is called as a block. Understand a block to be a box which has the data in encrypted form. So the moment both of us are validated, that goes inside the box. So there's a box 1, second transaction box 2, third transaction box 3. So there is a chain of boxes or chain of blocks, and therefore it's called blockchain. Huge application in financial services, healthcare records. If I want to share and I have to protect it, government records, land records, travel industry. Wherever there are intermediaries, etc., blockchain will become a big advantage. But is it gone to that level? No, it is still evolving. It will take some time, right? Next is, I think, yeah, that's all they've spoken. Then they speak about case studies. Yeah. Right. So that's exactly what I wanted to cover. It's a very quick brief in last 2.5 hours, I think. 6:37, 38, 39. Yeah, 2.5 hours. It is probably worth a movie's time. I gave intermission also 10 minutes. But most important is, I think I try to give you a gist of it. What you have to do very important is, either you start today or you start tomorrow with a fresh mind. However, it works best for you. Take it in pieces and portions. Even if you feel that a topic is taking very long, maybe you want to give a break, get into some other subject and come back. But divide that preparation time into component, piece, right? I have had multiple strategies which people have advised. One, finish the entire subject, go to the next subject. Second, finish a small topic or finish at least a chapter and go to some other subject. The choice is yours. As long as you are making progress, that is very good. And very important, don't stick on to study only one subject at a time, because if you spend excessive time only into one subject, why I'm saying this is because this subject has IT and SM. So maybe today you spend at least 1 or 2 days IT, or today full day IT you spend, today, tomorrow. Then after SM is over, spend some time for SM, and then anyways there's a break. right? 4 to 5 days, or I think sir would have given you that study plan. So go based on the study plan, study the other subject and come back and things like that, right? So make sure you're progressing slowly, but not just only on one subject. I think that is what I wanted to say, mention. Write and practice, please write and practice, please write and practice. Many of you last 2 years, thanks to COVID pandemic, everything was online, digital, hardly hand movement will be there. Accounts paper and group 2, what is your first paper? I think that is also accounts, right? Both are accounts paper.
Yes,
You will
advanced
realize
accounts.
your hand is literally not moving, right? You will realize that. I'm telling you time and again. Try, please write mock test papers. Very, very important. If you feel that mock test I don't want to take the last examination question paper and start answering that. You anyways have the answer sheet available. It is ready. Don't say that after I finish the syllabus, I will do this, because normally you will not finish the syllabus before exam. Even after the exam also, you will not finish the syllabus. So it is too risky an affair. Please plan that. And a few other general tips is be patient, right? It is okay. Some days you might be studying very well. Some days there is limited progress. As long as slow progress is happening, I think it is good. Do not panic. Very, very important. Do not panic. Do not get scared. It will happen. It will get through, right? Goes one step at a time. And take care of your health, because it is summer season, and especially in Bangalore, even though Bangalore is supposed to be a cool climate, chilled climate, all that story, we are seeing, huge heat burns and other things. Take care of your health. Please drink adequate water, buttermilk, whatever juice you feel is refreshing, and don't keep on studying day and night. Give adequate rest, right? Idealistic situation, a human brain requires at least 4 to 5 hours of rock solid sleep. That is between 11 to 4 p.m. for 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. at least, right? So have a cutoff. Beyond 11:30 I will not read, right? And maybe you want to start early at 4:35, whatever is that. 4 onwards is a very good time to normally study, right? And few other things. Post lunch, in case you are studying, you tend to be a little more sleepy, right? So what you could do is have a light lunch, right? Divide your lunch into 2 parts, right? Have a little bit, finish, probably an hour or 2 of preparation. Again, have some more part of it, right? You work it out. Maybe do practicals and other things post lunch, right? Again, I keep on telling you, please write and practice keywords. Very important from examination perspective, right? So with that, I will probably stop for the day. If there's any questions, I will take it. I'll just probably give you a minute in case any questions, any clarification, anything on these lines. Yeah, Rutvik.
So regarding the virtual memory, does that concept applies to even the mobile phones?
See, virtual memory is a function of an operating system. So today's mobile phone operating systems, some of them come with those features, and therefore it is possible. But from an examination perspective, restricted to only Windows.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Pradeep.
Sir, regarding blockchain technology, so someone is telling that they are bringing that even for to conduct elections and all those things. So
It's
how
still
does
under
this work?
discussion, too early for us to speak about it. But from examination, focus only on the examples they've given, which is financial, healthcare, I think government, land records and other things. If it comes to voting, we will see. We have a long time yet.
No, sir. Can you explain how does this work?
See, blockchain, the whole purpose of blockchain is what? Eliminate reconciliation. Right? I am passing a transaction, you're authorizing the transaction, then and there. The transaction gets uploaded or approved in both the systems at the same time. Let's take a simple example. Today, land is bought from me and you. Right? You sell a land to me or I sell a land to you. Now, we both, assuming to a government centralized repository, we are authenticating. So now, your land parcel will have a unique ID. That ID earlier was saying Pradeep. Now that ID will say the owner is Narsimhan. And if you click on that land ID, it will give the entire history. Narsimhan, before that Pradeep, before Pradeep it was A, before A it was X, before that the government gave. Or before that it was acquired from Mysore Raja, whatever, some XYZ. So the entire trail will be. Now tomorrow, can somebody says that boss, this land is mine and sell it off to you? Can creating of fake documents? It is avoided. Right? That is one use case. right? Another use case could be healthcare industry. Now, healthcare industry, what happens? You are having some details about yours. Now, a report has to be generated. Now, report is generated by lab. Lab has to send to hospital. Hospital has to send to scan center. So there are so many players, right? Can I have a single integrated system where I push the data, you approve it, hospital views it, right? So that's another use case of blockchain. Maybe pharma medical store. So there are multiple. So wherever you see multiple intermediaries, blockchain is a very good use case. Last example, stock exchange. Stock exchange, I'm buying and selling. So if I have to buy and sell, I need to have a demat account, right? I have to buy and sell through a broker. Where will the broker and buy and sell? Through a stock exchange. To open a demat account, I have to go to depository participant. There are 4 players. Eliminate all of them. Use an automated system. Might record to your record. Instantly, it gets transferred. Right. So that is basically what blockchain is.
Thanks.
Okay, so no more questions. I'm presuming you have reasonably understood, you are reasonably confident. So do not panic with this subject because many of them say EIS difficult, etc., etc. These are unwanted things which you are bringing into your mind. Go with a structured, simple, organized approach. Practice, bullet points, writing it. I think these are very critical, and I've already given you all the exam tips how you have to present, like answer to question number 1, answer to question number 2, put bullet points only, right? And there are important areas which I've already highlighted and given it to you. Glance through them. These are good enough topics, and I'm sure you will do well. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Bye,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Bye.